Welcome to the very first episode of Cursed Convos.
Mhm.
We talk about creepy pastas. We talk about true crime. We talk about anything that's creepy, gory, scary, unsettling. Boom, we're here for it. I am something sick. You might know me from my other channel. We have your co-host here.
The mud chips, little chips, bro.
The first story we have in Cursed Convos history is written by Elias Withero, and the title is When Hell Comes Knocking. Dun dun dun. And it's also edited by Seth Paul and Craig Groshek, so shout out to them, those lovely people. And without further ado, let's get right into it. I moved to a new town about a year ago. I was offered a job and was at a point in my life where I felt restless and eager all at once. A new job in a new town was exactly what I had been waiting for. In 2 weeks' time, after saying goodbye to my friends and family, I packed up and made the 4-hour drive to my new apartment. Turns out, it's tough to make new friends once you're out of college. I settled into the job just fine. My coworkers and daily routine both to my liking. Meeting new people was difficult though. I didn't go to church, I didn't really go out much, and I wasn't part of any club. After a couple weeks of maddening isolation, I forced myself to go to a bar, determined not to leave until I met a few locals. I'm glad I went because that's where I met Lydia. I happened to sit down next to her, and after I ordered my drink, she noticed me and smiled, commenting on my shirt. That sparked our conversation, and eventually, after a few drinks, I summoned the courage to ask her out to dinner. She said yes, and my life was suddenly exciting again. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Couldn't spend enough time with her. She was amazing, and our date turned into 2, then 3, until finally she came over to my place for the night. In the morning, there was no question of how we felt about each other. As the weeks turned into months, our relationship only got better. We never fought, we never argued. Hell, we hardly frowned at each other. I knew that we hadn't been dating that long, but even so, everything was so perfect. I was convinced that we would stay like this forever. One thing that did strike me as odd, though, was that she never wanted to spend the night at her place. We always ended up at my apartment, which was fine, but it struck me as kind of strange. I had seen her place only once, and it seemed perfectly fine. Her apartment consisted of an entire top floor of a 3-story house. Fairly old, but well kept. I asked her about this once or twice, suggesting we end the evening in her bed, but she always wriggled out of it. I didn't press her too much. Her excuses were always mildly valid. Well, all that has changed. You see, we did end up at her place for the night. And Christ, I wish I had listened to her. Okay, so in the story there's some asterisks, and I'm assuming that means time has passed. We were fairly drunk. The energy in the bar slowly winding to a dull murmur. I heard the bartender make the last call, and I groggily looked at Lydia on the bar stool next to me. She gave me a tired, tipsy grin, and I asked her if she was ready to go. She said yes, and as we made our way outside, I realized that I was in no condition to drive. My car was parked behind the bar, and as we clung to each other for warmth, I voiced my concerns. She told me she was too drunk to drive as well, and suggested we call an Uber. As I thought this over, I realized we were in correlation to her apartment. I told Lydia that we were only a couple blocks from her apartment. Why didn't we just crash there? She seemed to be waiting for this, knowing full well how close we were. I had only been there once, so my slogged mind had taken some time for that fact to catch up with my brain. After a long pause, she agreed, wearily. It wasn't a long walk. The streets around us empty, except for a few late-night stragglers. She lived pretty close to the center of town, and as we walked the brick sidewalk, I asked her how long she had lived at her place. She said 3 years, but she was looking to move. She wanted to get a place a little quieter, a little more out into the country. I expected her to casually bring up moving in together, but she never did. After a few blocks, we arrived at her place. It was a long 3-story house with each floor rented out individually. She keyed her way into the front door, and I followed up the flight of creaky stairs. At the very top was her door, and after glancing at me, she unlocked it, and we went in. This was only the second time I had been here, and as I looked around, I wondered why. She kept it very clean and organized. In fact, it was way cleaner than my place. The furnishing were elegant and crisp, modern in style, contrasting with the older building. I commented on how nice it was and that we should spend more time here. She shrugged off my comment with the maybe, and we began to settle in for the night. It was already late, so we cleaned up in the bathroom and retired into her bedroom. As we stripped and climbed into her queen-size bed, I noticed that she left the door open a crack. I thought that a little funny, seeing as how deliberate the action had been. I said nothing, though, and gratefully pulled the soft sheets over me. Lydia curled up next to me, casting a glance at the door, and settled her head on my chest. I pulled her tight against me and let out a long, happy sigh. I kissed her on the head, and I could feel her body relaxing against mine. It didn't take long before the two of us were fast asleep. It didn't last long. I jolted awake as someone pounded on the front door of her apartment. I blinked and opened my eyes in the darkness. What time was it? Who the hell was that? I reached over to the nightstand and checked my phone. It was 3:30 a.m. Way too late for someone to be stopping by unannounced. I went to sit up, but Lydia clutched my body, her hands trembling against my shoulders. I looked down at her, confused as to why she wasn't letting me up. I asked her who was at the front door. She didn't answer, just held me. Another trio of knocks, louder this time. I went to sit up again, asking her what was going on, but she looked up at me with fear in her eyes. "Don't get up," she begged. I was thoroughly confused now, her reaction puzzling me. Who was at the door? Why was she keeping something from me? Was she hiding something? I wonder if this was some ex-boyfriend, drunk and trying his luck. Just the thought of that made me want to get up and go see who it was, size this piece of shit up. Who the hell did he think he was? Lydia was mine, and I wanted everyone to know that. I tried to pry Lydia off me, expressing my thoughts, but she shook her head, telling me it wasn't an ex. I wasn't sure I believed her, but I could tell that regardless, she was terrified. She put her hands over her ears as another pounding on the front door echoed into her apartment. I took her face in my hands, forcing her to look at me. I told her I needed to go see who it was. Maybe someone was in trouble. Maybe something had happened. "Please, do not open that door." Another loud knock, as furious as the others. As I lay there, I noticed there was no yelling from the other side of the door. Typically, this late at night, the visitor would have announced themselves. Mercifully, it stopped. I waited, unaware that I was holding my breath, waiting for the pounding to continue, but it didn't. Exhaling loudly, Lydia softened against me. I could tell whatever had just happened had been a semi-traumatic experience for her. I tried to question her, but she begged me to just let her sleep. Stuttering, I forced myself to eat the questions crawling up my throat, and instead put a comforting arm around her. Soon I heard her breathing steady into the deep rhythm of sleep. I stared at the ceiling and wondered what the hell just transpired. The next day was Saturday, so neither of us had to go work. We woke up late and I felt Lydia get up and go into the kitchen. As I enjoyed the warm bed, I began to smell coffee brewing. I smiled and forced myself up. It was a pleasant morning, both of us lounging on her couch, idly chatting about what we wanted to do that day. I didn't bring up last night's incident, waiting to see if she would. It was obvious she was avoiding the subject, refusing to even acknowledge it. She seemed to be in a good mood, though. I decided to keep my mouth shut. When she wanted to talk about it, she would. Until then, I just needed to be a good boyfriend and not press her on about it. I would be lying, though, if I didn't say every part of me was bursting with irritated curiosity. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't some lover from the past returned for some late night action. As we finished our coffee, it began to rain outside, and I suggested we spend the day here, catching up on our TV shows and maybe cooking dinner together tonight. She seemed excited and agreed immediately, much to my surprise. I went and put another pot of coffee as she queued up our show on Netflix that we were watching together. Glancing out at the gloomy day, I smiled and snuggled up next to Lydia, ready for our lazy day together. The hours slowly went by, both of us in full binge watch mode. As episode after episode was played, the day peaked into the cloudy climax, and the dark gray outside began to fade into night. Both of us hadn't moved much, perfectly content on the couch, listening to the rain and television. After one of the episodes ended, she suggested we start making dinner. I agreed, feeling my stomach rumbling, and asked her what she wanted to make. After some discussion, we decided to try our hand out on some homemade Chinese. I turned on some music on my phone and she went to the kitchen and began pulling out ingredients. She tossed me an apron with a wink, and I laughed as I tied it around my waist. I went to her and took her in my arms, dancing her around the kitchen, lip syncing the song that was playing. She giggled and told me I was ridiculous, but then kissed me, slowing my dance. We pulled away from each other, and she began assembling the food. I wasn't much help, but I kept her entertained as she worked her culinary magic. We laughed and cycled through songs, our conversation light and flirtatious. After a lot of work, the food was finally done. We took our place on the couch again, piling the delicious smelling feast in front of us on the coffee table. I queued up another episode, and she shot me a smile, telling me today has been amazing. I wholeheartedly agreed and kissed her. Then we dug in with a vengeance. Lydia had outdone herself, everything coming out perfect. I gobbled down a couple of batter-fried pieces of chicken and told her we should do this again tomorrow. She agreed, but said that she'd like to sleep at my place tonight. I cocked an eyebrow at her, swallowing my food, and asked, why wouldn't we just stay here tonight? She looked at me over her bowl of lo mein and said, we've been here all day, why not mix things up? I put my food down and threw an arm over the back of the couch, expressing to her how great it was here today, that we should just put a bow on it and stay here for the night. I was still in my undershirt and boxers, for Christ's sake. She looked at me a little unsteadily, wanting to argue with me, but knowing she didn't have a good reason, at least that's what I thought, I could see her struggling to come up with something, anything, to get us out of here tonight. Eventually she just sighed and nodded silently. I smiled and rubbed her shoulder, telling her it was going to be great. As I turned back to my food, I wonder if her reservation about staying here had anything to do with the person at the door last night. But what did she have to be afraid of? I was here, and I sure as hell wasn't going to let anything happen to her. We finished our food and stretched out on the couch, pushing deeper into our show. Lydia laid down on top of me, and after a couple of hours in that position, I felt myself begin to drift off. I could feel Lydia doing the same, both of us surrendering to the food and steady rain. Together, they gently lulled us to sleep. Okay, little couple getting some late night action. Surely nothing's gonna happen this time around when they...
Foreplay, bro.
Yeah. I startled awake as someone pounded on the front door. Lydia sprang up on top of me, her knee thudding into my ribs. I let out an umph as my side spiked in pain, but she slammed her open palm down over my mouth, silencing me. Her eyes were wide and terrified, all traces of sleep gone from her face. I looked up at her, waiting for her to say something. Instead, she cowered down into me as another series of loud knocks came from her door. This is insane, I thought. Someone is clearly terrorizing my girlfriend, and she's been too embarrassed or ashamed to tell me about it. I forced both of us into a sitting position, despite her frantic efforts to keep me in place. I whispered to her that I was going to answer the door and put a stop to this. I told her someone was stalking her and that after I confronted the person, I was going to call the police and put an end to it. She shook her head wildly, tears budding in her eyes. She told me that it wouldn't do any good. The police couldn't help. She tried to pull me back down onto the couch, but I shook her off. Another round of pounding on the door. I told her I was going to answer unless she told me what was going on. She bit her lip, huddled on the couch, horror stretching her face. She said I couldn't answer the door, begged me in hushed whispers to just wait until they went away. Who was it? You have to tell me, I said in a soft growl, leaning close to her. She looked up into my eyes, tears staining her cheeks, and whispered, "It's the devil." The way she said it sent chills down my spine. What? What does she mean by that? 3 long knocks shook the frame of the door. I looked at my phone and saw it was a little after 3 in the morning. For a moment, I was completely frozen with indecision. I wanted to protect my girlfriend and confront this head on, but the way she was looking at me, begging me to just leave it alone, tore my mind into the other direction. Finally, I made an impulsive move, taking 3 long strides to the door as more pounding erupted from the other side. Seeing me, realizing what I was doing, Lydia leaped from the couch, screaming not to open the door, her eyes bulging from their sockets. As my hand found the doorknob, Lydia sprang towards me, still screaming, and grabbed my arm, jerking me back from the door. It was too late. I had turned the handle, and the door popped open a crack, letting in empty darkness. But there was something in that darkness. Lydia shrieked and tightened her grip on me, dragging me backward into the bedroom, her face swelling with absolute terror. She shoved me into the bedroom, screaming at me, her voice cracking. Just before she slammed the door shut, I saw something walk into the apartment, dragging shadows behind it. Lydia locked the bedroom door and leaned against it, sweating and breathing heavily. She looked at me, and I saw fear in her eyes I didn't know existed. She met my gaze and slowly shook her head, unable to believe what I had done, panic dripping from every pore. I didn't know what to say. Stunned by her reaction and terror, I stood by the bed, slightly shaken and confused. Something knocked hard on the bedroom door. Lydia let out a little shriek and then quickly covered her mouth. She squeezed her eyes shut and I heard her praying quietly. I didn't know what to do. I stood there stupidly, mouth agape. Someone was in the apartment. I had seen him come in. Reality was slowly sinking in, pushing aside the confusion and filling me with the icy cold of fear. Someone had walked into her apartment and was now pounding on the bedroom door. I swallowed hard, that icy fear tickling my stomach. We could be in serious danger. I needed to call the police, but both of our cell phones were by the couch, discarded where we had fallen asleep. I had to do something. I needed to try and take control of this. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, taking Lydia by the shoulders and moving her away from the door. She fought me for a second until I assured her I wasn't going to open it. Another sharp rap on the door. Heart racing, I pressed my ear against the wood. I didn't hear a sound between the knocks, not even breathing. Summoning my courage, I cleared my throat and asked who they were and what they wanted. A pause. I jerked back as another assault on the door rattled the hinges. I stared at Lydia, looking for guidance, hoping she had an answer to this madness. Every second that passed, I felt increasingly scared, the gravity of our position sinking deeper and deeper into my mind. It's the devil. I shook my head, disregarding the thought. That was ridiculous, an impossibility I wasn't going to humor. And yet, I felt something on the other side of that door. I couldn't explain it, but it was this feeling, this weight, like there was a black hole sucking me through the wood. I suddenly heard movement from the other side, and I pressed my ear against the door once again. I didn't hear anything. I wondered if maybe, just maybe, the person had left. Quietly, I got down on my hands and knees and looked under the door. A large yellow eye and black face were staring back at me from the other side. I screamed as soon as I saw it, pain rocketing through my eye socket. I fell back, clawing at my face as my vision swam and stars exploded in my skull. Lydia screamed and dropped to her knees next to me, asking me what was wrong. After a few seconds, the pain receded and I blinked back tears. Lydia just held me, terrified, and I looked at her, rubbing my eye. Her lip was quivering, and I could tell she believed what she had said, that whatever was on the other side of that door, she thought was the devil. I realized my own heart was racing, and I took a few steady breaths. That eye, I shivered, not even wanting to think about it. I had never seen anything like it. The way it dilated when it saw me, the sick yellow color. What the fuck was in here with us? Knock, knock, knock. Lydia curled up into me, tears freely falling from her eyes. I was so confused and scared. I just put an arm around her and stared at the bedroom door in darkness. What was I supposed to do here? God help me. What was I supposed to do? He's coming for me. Lydia wept, sobbing openly now. I told him I was his if he would just give me happiness. I was a little girl and my parents were so mean. Her big wet eyes looked up onto mine. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm so sorry. She covered her face now. God never answered my prayers and I was so sad. I just wanted to be happy. So I thought, oh, what have I done? She cried, big hoarse sobs racking her slender body. I took her face in my hands, forcing her to look up at me. Voice shaking, I asked, what the hell was she talking about? A deep seed of terror rooting in my gut. After another bone-shaking series of knocking, she told me that when she was a little girl, her parents abused her. She cried herself to sleep night after night, begging God to send an angel to save her. God didn't seem to be listening, and so, finally, she turned to the other side. She promised the devil he could have her if he would only bring her happiness. 3 days later, her parents died in a car accident, and she moved in with her grandparents, who loved her deeply. In the blackness of the bedroom, trapped and afraid, I listened to her story and felt nausea turn my stomach like rotten butter. As the words poured out of her mouth, I couldn't shake the image of the eye staring back at me from under the door. Bang, bang, bang! I jumped as the wood splintered, and whatever was behind the door shifted again. A new sound entering the darkness. It sounded like something was dragging nails across the wall, just outside the bedroom. Over and over again, the muted scraping sound pierced the pockets of silence. I pulled Lydia up onto the bed and sat her at the foot of it. I stood in front of her, sweat trickling down my spine, and I asked her what she was talking about. Asked her if it was true. She started to cry again, hands reaching out for me, but I grabbed them and pulled them to her sides. I asked her again, trying to block out the scraping sound against the wall. She nodded and said that it was. She told me for the past 6 months, if she was home, the knocking would start around 3 a.m. At first, she thought it was an intruder and called the police. But when they didn't find any traces of anyone after 4 separate visits, they stopped taking her seriously. Eventually, about 2 weeks in, she said that she remembered the deal she had made when she was a little girl. She remembered who she had made it with. I didn't know it would be this soon, she croaked. Looked up at me, her face stained with tears. I shot a nervous glance at the door as the scraping sound was followed by more pounding. I forced myself to breathe. If what she was saying was true, why doesn't it just come in? What's stopping it from kicking the door in and snatching my girlfriend? I couldn't make sense of it and turned these questions on Lydia, still sobbing. She said she didn't know either. She said whenever the knocking started, she would wait until it stopped. Sometimes it would be a few minutes, other times it would last till morning. She said that she felt that it was powerless unless she opened the door and let it in. Something about the doors, the separation of victim and prey, stopped it. I didn't know if it was some supernatural reason or maybe spiritual, but either way, I was thankful for it. But now we were trapped with no way out. We were on the top floor in the bedroom, with only one window looking out into the street below. Our cell phones were out there with the thing, and we had no way of communicating with anyone from in here. Again, I didn't know what to do. My mouth was dry and hot, my breath sour on my tongue. Shooting another glance at the door, I went to the window and looked out. Despite being in town, the streets were empty and the sky dark. I tried to open the window, but couldn't. My muscles strained as I put all my might into it, but it was no use. Lydia saw what I was trying to do and came over to help, bumbling that it should open. It always opened. Even with the two of us, we couldn't get it to budge. Frustrated, I slammed my fist into the pane as the bedroom door shook, accompanied by more scraping across the walls. It was useless. We were trapped in here. Lydia collapsed to the floor, backing herself against the wall, covering her ears against the barrage against the door. Exhausted and terrified, I slumped down next to her. We would have to wait it out. Damn, so what would you do if you just wait it out as well? Just try to go through, break the window?
You see, that's kind of like a okay, because there's like so many scenarios to this. Like, Yes, you could jump out the window, but I've seen too many movies to where like you do that, but it's like an endless loop. So it's
Mm.
kind of like a shitty thing. Like let's say you were to jump out the window and then run away, get to somebody peacefully, and then it just resets. So that's what like kind of
Oh.
pisses me off. So it's kind of like now it's like either A, you jump out the window and you risk it, hopefully everything goes well, or B, you ride it out and hopefully like it just stops or like yeah, that's kind of it. Like that's all you can do. Like
They did mention that they're on the top floor, so even if they did break the window, like getting out from that would be kind of hard in itself. Like some Mission Impossible shit, like using rope or something, to like actually get out of there.
yeah,
But let's see
it's
what's
just
up. Time passes by. It's still knocking. Lydia is crying in my lap. We haven't moved. It has to leave us alone. She said it always does. Eventually. The sun will be up soon. The clock says it's 5 a.m. Almost there. Please let it stop. Some time has passed. Why hasn't the sun come up yet? Something is wrong with my clock. It says it's 3 a.m. again. That can't be right. There's no one outside. There should be cars on the road, but I haven't seen a soul. God, it's knocking again. Some time has passed. I'm so tired. Screaming and pounding on the floor hasn't done any good. No one seems to hear us up here. I still haven't seen anyone outside. I tried breaking the window, but I can't even get it to crack. Something is going on. None of this is making sense. It's still dark outside. Where is the sun? I haven't heard anything from the door in a while. I'm praying it's over.
wait. So going back to the question you asked me earlier,
Uh-huh.
like so you know how I said that would you try to break the window or like wait it out? That's actually kind of interesting because like it just says here like he already tried breaking the window but it wouldn't.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
yeah, like at that point then what's the point, you know? Like you can't break it so you're literally forced to wait it out until it
Not even
stops.
a crack. Yeah.
Yeah, and what makes it even more intriguing too is that where is it at? He said that the knock like everything stopped, but he can't break the window. So that means it's still happening.
And he hasn't seen anyone or any interaction.
Yeah,
Imagine not seeing any cars throughout the whole time. Like,
that's what
you
I'm
would be
saying.
freaking out.
No,
Like,
yeah, 100%. Like, because you'd be thinking, like, okay, the knocking stopped, so it has to be over. But you haven't seen anybody. You already tried breaking the window, but it won't even crack. It's like, damn, like, you're
mm,
fucked, you know? Like, that's crazy. Ah, whatever. It's interesting. All right, continue.
okay. Time passes by. I'm getting hungry. I don't know how long we've been in here. Lydia is asleep on the bed, cried herself to sleep. The knocking is back, louder than ever. I could feel it just beyond the door. I'm so goddamn scared. I don't know what to do. Where is everyone? Why hasn't someone come to see what's going on? Some time has passed. I can't take this fucking knocking anymore. More time passed. Lydia is crying. She says she's thirsty. I am too. I feel like we've been here for days. I feel like I haven't seen the sun in ages. I'm starting to wonder if anyone is going to come for us. Whatever is outside the door, I think it's bent time around us. I think we might be stuck here. There has to be a way out though. I fell asleep. When I woke up, Lydia had her hand on the doorknob. I yanked her away, screaming at her. I can't lose her. We're going to get out of this. When I pulled Lydia away, the thing behind the door, the demon, the devil, or whatever it is, screamed at me. I have never heard such terrifying fury in all my life. God, please help us. Please. More time passed. Lydia is getting sick. We're never getting out of this room unless I do something. We're both dehydrated, and Lydia isn't going to make it much longer without some water. It's knocking, each blow crunching into my skull like a drill. Where is everyone? The clock still says 3 a.m. Fuck this. We're dying. I need to do something. Lydia has been lying on the bed for hours. I don't remember the last time I saw her move. Should check on her, but I'm so tired. The knocking is constant now. It hasn't stopped in hours. I think I'm going insane. Some time has passed. This is it. Lydia needs medical attention or she's going to die within the day. It's still dark out. The clock still says 3 a.m. I feel like I'm going deaf. The constant thundering against the door, a relentless assault on my senses. I'm going to open the door. I have to, or we're going to die. Whatever awaits us on the other side of it can't be much worse than this. I have to try something. I can't just let her die. I can't. I'm going to open the door. I can hear it screaming again. It sounds excited. There's another noise behind its howls. It sounds like someone quickly flipping through radio stations. I don't know what it means. It can't be good. God, if you're out there, I really could use some help. Please save us. I'm going to open the door now. And that's the end of Hell's
That's
Knocking.
crazy.
Thoughts?
You know what? I can see why it has such a high rating.
That was
One
pretty
thing
good,
I gotta
right?
give it. No, I mean, yeah, it wasn't a bad story. Interesting, to say the least. But not really my best savory taste to a story to end it on how it did. I'm going to open the door now. That's different. Usually some stories usually have like a ending, but which kind of ruins,
True.
which is kind of why I appreciate the story for not doing that, because now we're left to the audience like, shit, like they've
What
been like
happened?
dying. Yeah, exactly. So they've been like kind of stuck. But to be frank, it does only have 6 votes, so it's not a big
Oh,
story.
you're right.
That's
Yeah.
you know, that's why it has such a high rating. But I appreciate a story that does leave off at a good ending. It's not terrible. It does let the kind of lets the. It's one of those stories where it lets the people kind of decide on like, shit, did it end terribly, or did it end, where it's kind of like, fuck, they were able to get out of it. Now I wanted to see what happens next. You know,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's where I appreciate a story, because some stories do kill themselves by explaining what happens at the ending, and I'm just like, bro, this is boring as shit. Why the fuck? You should just end
Mm.
it off at like, let me wonder what happens. So this is kind of one of the stories where it falls into, to where it is like, okay, so now let me wonder, are they fucked or are they
Are they
good?
good?
Well, not,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say good, because obviously, like, they didn't resolve the problem. So obviously they're still stuck.
Mm.
So now once they open the door, they maybe I see it as like the devil fucking with them, kind of being like, hey, like you either have, I want to see how long they can go without opening the door, or if they will open the door, and then see another day to where they go through this torment, and then maybe like the next time around it's more torturous. So
That is true.
it's interesting. It's crazy. There's so many to it, to where it leaves the people wondering how the ending will actually happen. So I you know what? You know what? I give it a solid 9. No, no,
Okay.
yeah, I give it a solid 9. All right, I'll be nice. I give it a solid 9 out of 10. Good
Alright.
story. Good first story. This is my input on it. I love the way that they ended it, because some stories do drag it out. I'm just like, you could have stopped
Like, oh
here. You know what I'm
god.
saying?
Like, yeah, that's too much information. Just fucking pouring
Yeah.
it out, all out there for us to like be like, deciphering or like putting together. Is like, bro, just give me something simple. Like,
Yeah.
like leave it up to us sometimes. I mean, maybe
Now,
some stories could pull it off right.
you see, I don't know if it's just me or not, because like I said, I am pretty gone on coffee. So, if the story does, if it did explain what happened, then I missed it, then that's my bad. But I hate that the girlfriend didn't explain how this happened to her. Like, I wonder how,
Yeah,
excuse me, I
she
wonder how she
basically.
got into that predicament?
Yeah, like basically calling upon the devil when God wasn't answering was her whole reasoning behind this. And I was just about to mention as well, like, wow, it's kind of crazy. Like, it kind of all fell upon the boyfriend as well. It's like, what the fuck did he do? Like, she's the one that made the deal with the
Yeah.
devil, and now he's fucking suffering the consequences. Like,
Which is what's bogus. So I mean, now you see, now that kind of opens some more another another branch to the story. To be like, okay, so if let's say
oh
hypothetically, if you were to open the door, would the devil go after the girlfriend? You know what I'm saying?
yeah, or like leave him
Or
alone, or just take
yeah, that's
him.
what I'm saying. So that's where I'm so
Huh?
confused.
Yeah.
Because it does open another door to hypotheticals. You know, like if you were to open the door, how he just said, I'm going to open the door. So now, does the girlfriend get caught and he gets to live, or they both get taken, or it just sucks? You know, he was just at a bad time, wrong situation.
Like
And
bad situation as it is, because they're starving in
yeah,
there. He's saying like, hey, what do we got to lose? I'm just gonna
well,
fucking open the door.
what does he got to lose? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, facts. Is like, what if he's at that point of like mentality where he's like, you know what? It's not even worth to go through all this for her. Like, I'm just gonna open the
Which,
door
which
if I
genuinely
die.
sucks though. But like, I can't blame
Mm-hmm.
him, you know, because she
The
didn't. She refused to tell him what was going on. I'm just
yeah,
like,
from the very jump.
which is bullshit because I feel like, okay, the first night it happened, understandable. Second night, I feel like if it happens again, you should let him know. Like, hey, don't open the door. I made a deal with the devil. He's sending someone after me to collect my soul, and it will get us both. Or it might just come for her and then leave him alone. But he also might
Mm-hmm.
get caught up in it down the line. So
Oof.
I hate her for not doing that. You know what I'm saying? So
Like,
it's,
yeah, if she really
oh my
loved
god,
him or liked him enough, like it'll be like, hey, let me just go through this alone. Like, I'm not trying to make
exactly.
anyone else like caught up in this
Oh, what a
mess.
good story. You know
Good
what?
story though, yeah.
I gotta give it to him. I maybe just because on coffee juice, but that is crazy, bro. Like,
Quote unquote.
ah, that is a mind fucker. All right,
Yeah, good
you know,
story, good story.
I really love the open end. The open end gives you a lot of shit to think about. So I'm just like, all
Yeah.
right, damn, all right, all right. What's up?
If you have any story suggestions, leave it down in the comments down below. Uh, tell us what you think, and we're gonna
Now,
do more of these.
a little note. We will be switching the stories around. You know,
Good point.
My boy here sick will be telling the stories every now and then I will switch back and forth to give, you know, our input. Like I'll speak the story and he'll give me his input at the end of it, and so on and so forth. So if y'all like that arrangement, let us know. If you don't, then if you just want to hear a specific storyteller, then that's cool too, and the other person will give their input.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
do let us know. This is our first story, like I said. Don't judge us too hard,
Cut us
but
some
you know,
slack. It'll only
yeah,
get
yeah.
better down the line. Like,
Promise. I know we do have our other channel. We do not upload as frequently, but we are going through. Well, I'm going through shit, so you know it's my
mm-hmm.
fault. But we do promise to upload more. If it's on this channel or the gaming channel, let us know.
It being something sick with three eyes. Check it
It's
out. Check it
complicated.
out.
That's a complicated ass name, but whatever.
Something sick,
Uh,
three eyes. Just three eyes.
yeah. Okay.
Something
Yeah.
sick.
Specifically three
In the
eyes,
in,
but
in the sick part. Something
yeah,
is
yeah,
normal.
yeah.
Sick, three
Whatever he said.
eyes. And then you're
Yeah, yeah.
good.
Let us know if you prefer my voice or his voice. I won't be offended, and he won't probably
You're
be offended. But you
of
know,
course not.
uh. Anyways, I think that wraps up this first story. Shout out to the artist. Pretty good story.
Shout out to the writer.
Writer, there you go. Yeah, my bad.
The
Sorry.
writer is
Elias Withero. Shout out to you. And
shout
Seth
out.
Paul for editing. And Craig Goshek.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for chiming in, guys. It's sick,
It's Chips.
and we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.